But the main thing about the Chacham is that what he knows gets to his heart. Gets to his heart. There's another way of looking at this. We spoke about this. You look in Shemona Esrei, right? We think Kush Baruch Hu Tachanim Ladam Das, right? You give men das, and then we talk about Deya Binava Haskel, or in Nusach Svard, Chachma Binu Das is the same thing, just different way of looking at the same idea. Three things. Why all three? We just simply, like just like by Dayenu, just keep elaborating more and more to increase appreciation. 100%. That is definitely part of it. But the main reason is because there are three different levels of knowing. Deya is factual information up here. Bina is all the way down, right? Haskel or das is down in the heart. It's a difference between knowing truth and living by truth. That's the difference. If you know truth, right, doesn't necessarily mean that you live by that. There's tons of people who know the right thing. What were you thinking? A person does something, you know better than that. How many parents have told their children, you know better than that? So why did you do the wrong thing anyhow? And they look down, they hem and they haw, they kick their feet around. It was like, because it wasn't in the heart. That's why if a person, for example, again, a child, tell a child to make sure he looks both ways before crossing the road, and he agrees and says yes, and he even asks the question, why is it so important? So he explains it because cars come very fast, they don't always see you, you're small, you can God forbid get hit, right? You don't get hit and go in the hospital, even worse, God forbid. No, I don't. So what happens? He runs out and right into the street without looking both ways. He does remember halfway across the street, comes back to the curb. He would have been dead by now if a car was coming, but he comes back to the curb and looks both ways and then crosses again. He's lucky that he got a second chance that time. Not everyone, kids get killed. Adults get killed for not looking the proper way. I mean, especially if you're in London. I almost got killed because looking the wrong way. I wasn't used to the traffic, even though I knew it was different. But you don't. It's like it's used to doing things a certain way. So car honked me because I was looking that way. He came from that direction instead. It happens, right? Now, once it does happen, if a person has a situation where it's like a close call, that creates trauma. And trauma is emotional. It's completely emotional. And the thing about trauma, if it's mild trauma, it can be very helpful. Trauma can have a positive connotation too. We don't talk about positive traumas because we don't mind having them. But for example, a person has a very exciting moment, right? So then that moment will leave a lasting impression upon them many years later. But we don't call that trauma because that's a positive thing. Usually trauma has a negative connotation, but it works the same way. It leaves an impression on the emotions, in this case for the negative. If it's for the positive, it's uplifting and inspiring. If it's negative, it holds a person back. It locks a person in the past, and they can't function in the present. So this the experience of having a near-death experience by walking across in a car, slamming its brakes and screeching, and the guy gets out, yells at the kid. He won't have to think about that anymore the rest of his life. It will be automatic. He will approach a light at the age of 46, and he will start breathing out in a sweat because his body will say, "This is that thing again." Right? That's that we went through a long time ago. It's happened all over again. And that's Haskell. That's das. That's in the heart. But it's not the way to go. The ideal way to go is to work it through intellectually. So some parents, they're good about this, right? They don't just give over the information. They dramatize it. They find ways to illustrate it. They find ways to make it as real as possible to the child without making it too real that they're going to have nightmares and fears the rest of their life. So they can bring it from the level of Deya to the level of Bina, level of Haskell in the heart itself. And that's Moshe Benu. Moshe Benu knew everything. Okay, in this case, Bilam did not know what Moshe knew, but he knew a lot. He knew enough to be a tzaddik. Look, that's it's so confusing. You listen to Bilam talk, and you're saying to yourself, or you should be saying to yourself, if you know this, and you're saying all this to Balak, even Bakoshi, but you know this, so why are you doing what you're doing? Well, that's the difference between somebody who only knows it cerebrally and someone who knows it in their, in their heart. It's real to them. That's where the inconsistency comes from. But Moshe, every time he heard a truth, he integrated it. It became part of his world view. I think the word is Weltanschauung. It's like somehow the way he looked at the world, and he absorbed it. And that's the same thing by the Chacham versus the Rasha at the table. Now, and what's important to know, it's not just about chinuch. It's not just about having a Chacham versus a Rasha. It's about more than that, because the whole thing is called Seder. And the reason why it's called Seder is because that is the bottom line to the Seder. The word Seder means order. And it's not just because it's also organized. There's lots of things we organize and all kinds of holidays. We do it a certain way, and halachically, you can use the word order for almost every Jewish holiday, because that's what we are. We're orderly people. We try to be orderly people, at least. That's what the Torah is supposed to bring out of us. So then what is this concept of order? Because you look at the very first two psukim of Ma'aseh Bereshis, and it says Bereshis B'Elokim es Shamayim v'es ha'aretz. In the beginning, God made the heavens and the earth. The earth was null and void, and there was darkness upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God hovered above the water, as we mentioned before in the past. 6,000 years of history, right there in the second pasuk. And then the next pasuk, and the whole thing about light, the whole thing about the creation of light, which Torah, all the that's like the metaphor, right? The light comes to end the chaos, because the Torah is telling you, contrary to what we live like, contrary to popular thought, the natural way of the world is not Seder. It's chaos. Now, today, science has confirmed that. It's called entropy, a scientific term, but the natural way, if you understand what the Torah is telling you, that chaos rules the universe, it's a miracle we have as much order as we do in the world. And it's only because the Baruch imposes it from outside to make sure we don't destroy the world, because we've almost done it a few times already. But that's what the Jewish people are supposed to be about. Our job, we're Mesadrim. We're the ones who bring order to the world. And if we don't bring Seder to the world, nobody else will. Nobody else can. Because you can't impose it. Nations are like, I'm going to bring order. No, you have to have guidelines. You need to know what order means, because God's idea of order clearly is not necessarily, and often not, the same idea of man's idea of order. So then what is God's idea of order? Oh, well, that's what the Torah is all about. When God gave the Torah, he basically said, I brought order to chaos. You bring order to chaos. How you do it? Here, read this. I wrote it just for that. It's the user's manual to help you to be able to do what I did, because that you're made with similar keys to do what I did. A godly being brings order to himself, to his family, to his community, and to the world as much as he possibly can. That's the idea. And how we do that? Deya, Bina, Vahaskel. And that's what the Chacham represents. He's not just somebody who knows a lot. Might be. He's not just someone who takes it to heart, what he knows, right? That's clearly what makes a Chacham in the end. He is somebody committed to the order of Ma'aseh Bereshis, Al Pi Hashem. So when he asks this question, right, you can tell his question is completely selfless. He's not asking like the Rasha. The Rasha is asking his question to get out. This is my life, my way of looking at reality. Here's how I want to do it. I don't care what you say. And here's my opening. Here's my door. I'm out of here. What are the consequences? I don't care. I don't really care, because all that matters to me is me. Complete selfishness. The Chacham is asking the question. He's saying, how can I make it better? What does this mean to us? Meaning that I'm part of the picture. I understand that we're on a program here to try to be a partner with the Kodesh Baruch Hu to fix up all of creation. That's our role. What can I do? I was just born into this. I'm new at all this. And I know enough to know that's all that counts in life. That's my meaning in life. I know that. I just don't know how to do it. So please instruct me, tell me. So then we say to him, we teach him everything. but not just the words, right? Until after, why the afikomen? Why the afikomen? Everything up until you can't even, of all the things to measure, why, why is that the last thing that we have to, it's the conclusion of the entire experience? Because when you think of it's called the dessert, really, right? But if you think about what's the even that alone touches something, right? What's the point of a dessert? You don't eat a dessert to fill yourself up. That's the main course. You have an appetizer to whet your appetite, so to speak, but usually fills you up anyhow, right? To whet your appetite, and then you have the main course to fill your stomach and to satiate you. You have enough. Dessert is not to fill up anything. That's why the Gemara says there's always room for dessert because you don't need room for dessert. The whole point of dessert is that it leaves a good taste in your mouth after the meal's over. That's the whole point. That's what it's. And so we're saying that Jewish history is very hard and long and really quite convoluted. Excuse me, still recovering from last week's cold, but it's clearly something that's left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. And it's not just because of what they went through. Because lots of people go through bad stuff. It's the approach they took, that they have to take, that they've been trained to use to deal with all of that. That's chinuch. That's giving a child an experience of chen, showing them how to extract the chen when it seems like it's not even there. That's our goal. That's the point of the Seder. This is a transmission process. This is a transmission process. This is a process that we are literally we're bequeathing to the next generation. It's not just like an education process, but we're actually giving over the heart and soul of Judaism to the next generation. If you were giving over a business and you wanted to make sure the business was going to be run in the spirit that you ran that business, not just, I know there's a good caretaker there taking care of the business, doing what has to be done. No, you want the ruach of the business to survive as much because it's famous for this type of a thing, not just mechanically putting things out. You make a point of teaching everybody who's going to be running the business what it is that you see, what it is you experience. You try and get them to see it from your perspective so that they have that part of you in them as they go forward and carry on and maintain that ruach. That's what the Seder is all about. It's like a link. It's a hinge pin. It's so crucial. Even though all year long, most of the year, a child goes to cheder, goes to yeshiva, goes to university, whatever. We're always learning. Doesn't make a difference. But the Seder was an experience where Chazal said they built into the Haggadah to help us not just educate, not just experience, not just commemorate, but to make sure, and not just our children, by the way, because it's talking to us too. Because everybody's got the potential to be a Rush inside of them on some level or another, and everyone's got the potential to be a Chacham on their own level. And that's what the Seder is supposed to bring out in us, to be the Chacham and not the Rasha. And you'd be surprised how easy it is to fall in the category of being a Rasha. And in Tanakh, there are people who in their time had a lot of respect from a lot of people. It's only in retrospect that we hear what they were like, what the Gemara talks about. But until that time, they were like leaders of the Jewish people. As the Gra points out, based on the Zohar, the heir of Rav, the mixed multitude is called the heir of Rav because many of them will be Rav. They'll be leaders, Torah leaders too. It's possibly based on that perspective, that fundamental architecture that's developed between 0 and 12 that affects the way we look at everything the rest of our lives. And that's what the Seder represents, giving this mission over to the Jewish people. And again, just to reiterate, mentioned before in the past, that's the reason why the word chinuch, which means education, comes to the word ched. Because ultimately speaking, that's what we're giving over. We're giving over, hopefully, our own ched, and hope that we can discover it and bring it out and portray it and reveal to the world, which is just the soul making it to the outside. and give that over to the next generation so they'll do the same thing as well.